Have you ever wondered what series of events led to the most devastating conflict in human history, World War II? Our journey begins in the aftermath of the Great War, with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. This document, intended to ensure lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of the next global conflict. It left Germany economically crippled and politically humiliated. It was in this climate of resentment and desperation that a charismatic speaker, Adolf Hitler, rose to power. Hitler promised a return to German greatness, a promise that resonated with a nation in turmoil. However, his ambitions didn't stop at Germany's borders. In 1939, Hitler's forces invaded Poland, a clear violation of the treaty. This act of aggression marked the start of World War II. The world, still healing from the scars of the Great War, was once again entangled in a web of political tensions and economic instability. And thus, in 1939, the world was plunged into its second global conflict. As the world held its breath, the Axis powers began their aggressive expansion. It was a time of unprecedented aggression and tactical ingenuity. The world watched in awe and horror as the dominoes of peace began to fall one by one. It began with Germany, led by the infamous Adolf Hitler. The German military machine, fueled by the fiery rhetoric of their leader, employed a new form of warfare known as blitzkrieg, or lightning war. The strategy was simple yet devastatingly effective. Swift, concentrated attacks aimed at the enemy's weakest points, leading to rapid capitulation. The world watched in disbelief as Poland, Denmark, Norway, and the Low Countries fell under the Nazi onslaught. But the most shocking defeat was that of France. Considered one of the world's strongest armies, France capitulated in just 6 weeks. The French government signed an armistice, and Hitler, in an act of supreme humiliation, forced them to sign it in the same railway carriage where the Germans had surrendered in World War I. Meanwhile, to the south, Italy, under the rule of Benito Mussolini, joined the fray. Dreaming of a new Roman Empire, Italy sought to expand its influence in Africa and the Balkans. Though not as successful as their German allies, the Italian aggression further destabilized the region. Across the ocean, the Empire of Japan, a member of the Axis powers, had its own ambitions in the Pacific. They launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This audacious assault resulted in the United States' entry into the war, marking a significant turning point. By the end of 1941, the world map was changing at a dizzying pace. The Axis powers, with their aggressive expansionism and ruthless tactics, had plunged the world into a state of total war. From the ruins of fallen nations to the smoking wreckage of Pearl Harbor, the world was awash in conflict. By the end of 1941, the world was truly at war. However, the Axis powers' initial successes would not last. As history unfolded, several key moments emerged that would gradually change the direction of the Second World War. The Battle of Stalingrad is often heralded as one of these pivotal moments. The city, bearing the name of Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, was more than a strategic point. It was a symbol. Between 1942 and 1943, the Red Army and the German Wehrmacht clashed in what was to become one of the most brutal battles in human history. The harsh winter, coupled with fierce Soviet resistance, eventually led to the encirclement and surrender of the German Sixth Army. The Battle of Stalingrad marked the first major defeat of Hitler's armies on the Eastern Front, signaling a shift in the war's momentum. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, another significant development was unfolding. The United States, initially determined to maintain its neutrality, was thrust into the conflict following the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in late 1941. The entry of the U.S., with its industrial might and abundant resources, not only provided a much-needed boost to the beleaguered allies but also marked a new phase in the global conflict. But perhaps the most iconic turning point came on June 6, 1944, known forever as D-Day. Thousands of Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy in the largest amphibious invasion in history. This audacious operation marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's Fortress Europe. The successful invasion opened a new front against the Axis powers, stretching their resources thin and hastening the end of the war. Each of these moments, in their own way, marked a turning point in the Second World War. They were the instances where the tide began to turn, shifting away from the Axis powers' initial wave of victories. The once unstoppable Axis powers now found themselves on the defensive. By 1945, the end was in sight. The world had been in turmoil for 6 long years, and the final act of this tragic play was about to unfold. The landscape of Europe was scarred by the furrows of war, and the Pacific Islands bore the brunt of relentless battles. In the heart of Europe, Adolf Hitler, the man who orchestrated this global conflict, was cornered. Surrounded by the Allies on all sides, his dreams of a 1,000-year Reich reduced to rubble. In the depths of his bunker in Berlin, Hitler, the man who instigated this world war, took his own life on April 30th, 1945. His death signaled the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. On May 7, 1945, Germany officially surrendered to the Allies, bringing an end to the war in Europe. The once mighty Third Reich was no more, and the continent began to pick up the pieces from the devastation. However, the war was not over. Across the Pacific, Japan was still holding out. The Allies were faced with the daunting task of invading the Japanese mainland, a campaign that promised to be bloody and costly. However, a new and terrifying weapon was about to change the course of history. In August, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The destruction was unparalleled, the death toll horrific. The world had entered the nuclear age, and the impact was devastating. Japan, reeling from the catastrophic loss, surrendered on August 15, 1945. The formal signing of the surrender documents took place on board the USS Missouri on September 2, 1945. Representatives from all the Allied nations were present to witness this historic moment. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief as the most destructive conflict in human history was finally over. On September 2, 1945, World War II finally came to an end. The world was changed forever, scarred by the horrors of war, but hopeful for a peaceful future. The final days of the war had come and gone, leaving behind a legacy that would shape the course of history for generations to come. The world had been forever changed by the war. Indeed, the echoes of World War II still reverberate through our modern world, a stark reminder of the human capacity for both destruction and resilience. In the aftermath, nations were left in ruins, and millions of lives were lost, a chilling testament to the human cost of war. But from the ashes of conflict, new institutions arose, designed to prevent such a catastrophic event from ever recurring. One pivotal outcome was the establishment of the United Nations. Born in the shadow of a war that had engulfed the globe, this international body was founded on the principles of peace, security, and cooperation among nations. Its goal was, and still remains, to solve international disputes through dialogue rather than violence, a beacon of hope in a world scarred by conflict. Yet even as the world sought peace, new tensions were rising. The end of World War II marked the beginning of the Cold War. 2 superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, emerged from the conflict, their ideological differences setting the stage for a new kind of warfare, a war of words, espionage, and proxy battles that would last for nearly half a century. Meanwhile, Germany, the instigator of the war, was divided. The Allies split the country and its capital, Berlin, into 4 zones of occupation. This division would become a physical manifestation of the ideological divide between East and West, culminating in the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961. But let's not forget the human aspect. The war had a profound impact on individuals and communities. Families were torn apart, cities were destroyed, and generations were marked by the horrors of war. The memory of this immense suffering continues to remind us of the tragic costs of war. World War II, a conflict that changed the world, reminding us of the tragic costs of war and the importance of maintaining peace. In the end, the lessons we learn from history are those we carry forward, guiding our actions in the hopes of a better, more peaceful future. As we look back on World War II, we're reminded of the complexities of history. This global event, seething with turmoil and strife, is a stark testament to our shared human experience. From the ashes of destruction, nations rose anew, forever altered by the scars of battle. World War II taught us lessons of unity, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. It showed us the price of freedom, the cost of ideologies, and the devastation that comes when diplomacy falters. The echoes of this war still resonate today, shaping our world and reminding us of the profound impacts of our actions. We remember not only to honor those who fought and fell, but also to ensure that the lessons of this war are not lost to the annals of time. May we never forget the events of World War II, and may we strive for a future defined by peace and understanding.